We're going to be talking about disarming techniques. These are for your super sensitive areas that even when you first start to go in with the blaster, hurt like crazy. So this is your beyond bound people. This is people who have sections of their body that can either be really nervy feeling or have spots of beyond bound. Really deep dents can be super sensitive, so that's what we're going to talk about. It's a little difficult because I'm not actually beyond bound. As you can see, you can grab my fascia, or I can grab my fascia, I should say, and pull it up. And this is what you want. This is healthy tissue. If you can't grab your skin and pull it like this anywhere on your body, then that is a place where the fascia, the top layer of structural fascia, has almost like octopus tentacles or jellyfish tentacles hanging off of it, going through the next layer to the next one, and so on and so on and so on. And if they get all glued together, that's when it becomes beyond bound, and it's just sticky and hard and not much movement. It's so important when you're hypersensitive to really heat up. And you've got so many different ways you can heat the area. You can use a hot pad, you can put on a sauna suit, anything that you can do to get your core temperature up as well as heat from the outside is going to go ahead and put the tissue in a better position to be more malleable, okay? But the first thing that you can do is if you're sensitive just to the touch like this, okay? So if any amount of pressure bothers you, or when you're using the FasciaBlaster, if just using it at the skin level hurts, most likely you have hypersensitive nerves. We have to remember that the nerves run through the fascia. So if they're kind of standing up, then you want to give some biofeedback to your brain to say, hey, nerves, chill out, okay? So there's several ways that you can do that. I like to start with what I call the slap down technique, and this is literally all you do. You start patting it, and believe it or not, the tissue will send a message to the brain, hey, something's happening to me, and then the brain will tell the tissue, okay, you can handle that, and it starts to adjust. So you would just, rhythmically tap at it. Officially, this is called the slap down technique, if you've seen the first disarming video. And you basically just keep slapping on it until it's less sensitive, and then you'll go back and test and see, okay, can I handle that now? And if not, you keep slapping it until at least the skin is not sensitive to the touch. There's also another technique. So you've tried your slap down, you've done the face blaster like nice and light, and it still might just not want to open. So then you can take the thicker side of the nugget and just start tapping with that. And again, this is just all biofeedback. And because the fascia is the largest sensory organ, it's really effective to do these little silly things that I'm telling you to do, okay? But the goal would be to slap it, poke it, and then get to the point where you can blast it. And what I was gonna say about the blasting is if you're really sensitive, I love using the face blaster because you just can't leverage it, too hard. With the Master Blaster you can. With this, it's pretty hard to dig in. So again, look at the depth. So we're only trying to get maybe the tips about that much to get the fascia layer. You would start off literally this light. So those are some disarming techniques. And for inner thighs though, if it's not sensitive to the touch, clarify, most people, it's to blast it is sensitive. Like this part of the knee tends to be really sensitive, around the ankle bones seems to be sensitive. So I'm gonna give you a technique that I absolutely love, and it's just called fascia pulling. We tend to have places that have kind of intersections of fascia that we also don't exercise very often, because you remember part of what loosens fascia is flushing the blood through it. And this is not a part that most people exercise, and neither is the insides of our ankles or our shins or whatever. But so the fascia pulling technique, you start big and then you go to small, okay? So if I was gonna do my inner thigh, I would take my hands on dry skin and just grab it and pull. And Lori, feel free to come in if you want. So I'm just getting a handful of tissue and trying to pull it up. And what I want you to visualize now, if you are beyond bound, this is what your pull is going to look like, right? Who out there is BB and doing this much, they can feel it. If you are beyond bound and you grab and pull like that, there's going to be some screaming happening. Okay, I'm even thinking of like my male athletes, you know, that they were so bound that this was super intense, and like after an hour of just this basic baby grabbing, it was like all of a sudden, you know, they could access their muscles again. So you start big, and you may have to do that for 10 minutes. And then you want to start going back small. And I'm not just pinching, I'm pinching and pulling. And the reason why the pinching and pulling is important is because you're stretching the fascia. So think of it like mozzarella cheese, right? I all of a sudden just wanted pizza, and I haven't had it in a long time. Okay, so we can get even teeny tiny like this. So you start big, and then you work into medium, and then you work down to super small. And even literally this, you guys, just pinching the skin and pulling it up, you would not believe the difference that could make. And then if you're, you know, if you've desensitized it and you've stretched it out a little bit, then you can come back in, you know, with the FasciaBlaster or the Master Blaster staying pretty surface. And then there's nothing wrong with like giving it a more vigorous fascia pull at the end. Let's talk about the feet and ankles, because I know that is an issue for a lot of people, and I just want to show you what all these techniques look like. So most people are not sensitive like this. If you're sensitive to the touch, revert back to the slapping, you know, revert back to the poking. See, look at me, I just all of a sudden start banging. I'm like, that feels awesome. But the fascia pulls are most excellent for around the ankles, and they're just super gentle like this. And you can do this all over your foot. And it'll be crazy. I want everybody to rip off their shoe and try this with me right now, because I want you to see if you do these little baby fascia pulls, if you feel like one spot that's crazy tight. So I just did all of that, and right here is really sensitive, where the rest of it I can just kind of go ham. There's really no substitute for heat, because heating, it's about getting the tissue in a different state before you start to treat it. So I think of it as a completely different activity. You know, we always say that heat is best practices, but I always answer people too, like, no, you don't have to heat. But, you know, when we're talking about sensitive areas and you're like, wham, this hurts, and, you know, this is a big problem for me.
There's a holy crap that hurts.
Heat it. Oh, yeah. So you can do this all around the ankles. Let's just go fishing, you guys. I'm interested in hearing where you hurt.
Owie.
Owie. So also you can do something that, you know, I don't even know what school of this came from, but I know that it's done. I've had massage therapists do it to me before, is that if you take it and then you sort of just roll it. So you're doing like a fascia pull and then a skin roll. It's just a really good way to know where you need to be treated. So if I was rolling through there and this spot was really bad, I would come back in and FasciaBlast it. And then, of course, I'd always come back in with, you know, poke and wiggle. I would look to see if there was a joint that needed mobilization. You know, that's kind of the whole process, would be to heat, disarm, blast, treat, mobilize, ice. You know, so if you're really trying to work on something and you have the time to put into doing the full process, that is the best. So calf is just same way. So we could start with the macro pulls like this, right? So I could just start pulling it away or pulling it off the shin. And then I would go to my kind of medium. I hope everybody there can appreciate this beautiful fascia. And then we would go to, like, you know, the little pinches. And it's a pinch and pull. By the way, you guys, this is part of my book and the 5 Ps, the pinch and poke test. I think everybody out there can agree it works if you do it. You know, and it's just like drinking water or, you know, eating clean or getting into the gym or whatever it is. Consistency is key. Slow and steady wins the race on this one. You know, a lot of people think that they can't do this. They're like, oh my God, that like looks like it hurts so bad. And this is the best thing in the world for that. To talk a little bit about the science, you know, we found, first of all, on ultrasound imaging, that the fascia completely smooths out all the way down to the bone. So even tissue that we can't reach is remodeling, which is huge. And you have to remember that the nerves run through the fascia. So healthy fascia is going to equal healthier nerves, right? If we watch people like Julie Chilberg or me go into town the way we do, I can imagine if I was sensitive to the touch that would look scary, but it's a process to work up to that if you have those issues. What is back here is that we have kind of some weird intersections of muscles, but we also are highly fascious behind the knees. So that is an area that you definitely want to, and if it's super sensitive, that's a great way to, start with some of these pulling techniques and really see where it's coming from. See if it's, coming from the calf or the quad. You can tell by if you pull and you pull towards the foot. If it's tighter that way, then above it is tight. If you pull up, you can see if it's coming from the calf. You can pull side to side, and it just gives you like a little basis for where you need to go to treat it. But pulls are really successful behind the knee, particularly if you bend it like the way that I have it right now, because the skin loosens up. Yeah. Just pull down on it, just like that. And also, it's better with the FasciaBlaster, but the scooping technique behind it like that. And I like the knee bent because it shortens the fascia. You can pull anytime. I find myself doing it all the time. I get tight in my hip, and I am a chronic, hip flexor puller. It's a really effective technique, and you don't need any tool to do it. And you can do it anytime, any place, as long as people aren't looking at you funny.
What does the pulling do?
Yeah, it stretches the fascia. It just pulls it up and stretches it. So anytime that the fascia is collapsing and grabbing, you're opening it up. And the best way to describe it is like mozzarella cheese. You lift that top layer, and then all the fascia comes with it. It's really appropriate for everyone. And the disarming techniques, the only reason I kind of mention that with older people is it tends to be, we get messages from older people who are kind of new to this, and they're like, I'm scared to do it. And so that's why I think if someone's scared to do it, you want to give them that way to sort of ease into it and know that, touching your tissue is good, moving your tissue is good. Even if it's sensitive, it's good, because we tend to go, ow, that hurts. Let me not mess with it, when that's the very place that you need to be working.
Is pulling similar to cupping?
It is, yeah. Let me tell you, so I try everything because I like to know what it's like. So I've tried all different kind of cupping, but I want to share with you about when I went to China, the actual China, and got cupped by a China master. He pulled out cups that looked like something from Indiana Jones. They were this big, and they put the fire in them, so they had some serious suction, and he put them on my back, and my skin was all the way up in it. So I think that people talk about cupping for blood flow, but they don't realize that there is a benefit to stretching the fascia. I've never heard anyone who cups say it stretches the fascia, but that's what it's doing. But the fact that it holds it is why you get like the hickeys, because it's sucking the blood up, in there. All right, ladies, well, I hope that you will take this video and share it with anyone you know that has hypersensitive fascia, and reassure them that if they do these techniques and ease into fascia blasting, that they can get themselves out of pain.